Mafia. Mamma mia. Ragazzi, guardate un po' ragazzi, sono un amico.
Sicily, Italy. The Italian island of Sicily have been hit by a severe storm accompanied by torrential rain, destructive winds and flash floods, which have disrupted normal life and left widespread destruction in their wake. Although they have declared a state of emergency in several provinces, and emergency services are struggling to cope with the flood of calls for help and support. The storm, which began on Sunday evening and lasted until Monday, was accompanied by wind gusts exceeded 100 km/h and total rainfall exceeded 120 mm in just few hours. In cities such as Palermo, Catania and Messina, road turned into rivers and mudslides in isolated rural communities. Dramatic footage posted on social media showed cars flooding through the flooded streets, flooded shops' windows and firefighters' residents wading chest deep in the water. In Palermo, civil defense workers rescued more than 17 people who were trapped in their homes and vehicles. "We have never seen anything like this," said Marco Ferraro, a resident of Catania. "It was like a tropical cyclone. Trees were falling and wind was howling all night." Several hospitals across the isolated reported temporary power outage, although backup and generator to keep critical service running. Schools across the region were closed, and rain and air transport suffered several delays. Meteorologists attribute the extreme weather conditions to low-pressure system knocking down the Mediterranean storm similar to hurricane, which was intensified by hammering high sea temperatures. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed his support, saying, "The government stands with Sicily. We are mobilizing emergency funds and civil protection until they provide immediate assistance." As the sky begins to clear, the true cost of the storm is only beginning to emerge. Preliminary estimates put the damage of tens of millions of euros. With the unstoppable weather forecast for the end of weeks, Sicilian authorities remain on a high alert. Residents are advised to follow the news, avoid flooded areas, to report any emergencies. Italy Protection Zone Civil Hotline. After the storm, Sicily emergency service remained overwhelmed. Over 315 emergency calls were recorded in 24 hours, and fire crews were sent to Cerrete, Ragusa and Agrigento to clear fallen trees, restore power lines and evacuate flooded buildings. Farmers in rural area report catastrophic losses. Vineyard, olive grapes and retail and citrus orange, where other vital civil economy were flooded. This storm destroyed a 12-year war. St. Antonio Rizal, the farmer near Trapani, were in despair. The island's fragile infrastructure suffered serious damage in the southern parts of the island. Bridge in the rural roads collapsing, cutting off Smile Mountains town. In Enna, several landslides blocked all access roads, forcing helicopters to deliver supplies. Rescue teams, including the military, have been deployed to assist with the worst-hit areas. Civil defense until have set up temporary shelters in schools and community centers of displaced families, many of whom have lost everything. Environmental experts warn that such intense storms are becoming more frequent due to climate change.
Holy sh!
Sicily has always faced extreme weather conditions, say climatologist Lucia De Santis, but the scale of intensity of this phenomenon is unprecedented. The sea surface temperature is at 3 Celsius above average and they contributed to strongest storm. The Italian Red Cross has launched into campaign to collect food, clothing and foods. Donations are accepted online in location collection center. Despite the destruction have also been stirred by heroism. In Palermo, a police officer warning through the flood waters a rescue an elderly couple trapped in the flooded car. We couldn't leave them there. The water was rising fast, he said. As the cleanup beginning to Sicily starts to recover, officials warned the crisis far from over. Weather warning reminding police and another storm front cooled in southern Italy by the weekend. The human toll of storm is still being aced. At least 3 days have been confirmed so far, including the elderly man who drowned in flooding basement in Messina and young delivery driver who was swept away by flood waters in Catania. Dozens of people have been injured, many of them due to falling debris in traffic incidents on the road, Middleside, Pillar or rain. Sicilian Governor Renata Citrelli visited the flooded areas on Tuesday, calling that the match helicopters and promised long-term support. We will not abandon our people. The recovery will be swift and complete, we promised during the press conference. Local volunteers are in the affected areas, diverted flood and helping to clear debris. Social media is now filled not only image and destructive but also of solidarity. Neighbors stretch open shoulders and young groups organized donated drivers. School in several provinces remain closed to damage assessment continue. Psychologists have been sent to provide assistance to children and families affected by trauma, especially in the hardest hit community of Gela and Litzita. Italy Environmental Minister has promised a new plan to rebuild the south, including flood protection and reforestation measures, improvement to early warning system, but critical say this measure alone overdue. In Palermo, the sun broke through the grey sky, elimination of the messy aftermath in the night of Sicilian will not soon forget. We use a hardship, said Maria Conte, the grandmother, whose home was flooded, but we will drive flood, support each other and move on. Sicily is beginning to recover, but questions remain. Will the storm the wake-up call is just another serious ignore of warnings? This is not the first time Sicily was faced with the wrath of nature, but experts are calling the storm one of the most destructive weather events in decades. The last such disaster occurred in 2029, where deadly floods and landslides killed 37 people in Messina, but this time the combination of heavy rainfall, wind and widespread infrastructure damage made the consequences even more serious. According to preliminary government report, more than 1,200 homes were damaged, 14 roads remain closed and 7 bridges have been structure damaged. Insurance companies are already inundated with the calls of many families without insurance to continue on compensation from the state. This storm was particularly dangerous because it suddens. Meteorologists issue a yellow alert just hours before the first downpour. By that time, it was too late many communities to prepare. Critics are now calling to fast weather warning system to better preparedness of natural disaster, especially in the southern region, which is often overlooked. Satellite images show in a grim picture. Sicily, normally bridge collapsed looks at the dew blow from the narrow fields and wild green groups are now fast asleep through the mood and the water. Environmental warning in addition to human casualties, entire ecosystem have been temporarily destroyed. In the city of Noto, residents placed candles and the steps of historic cathedral in memory of the victims. Local presses helped open air masses in a flooded courtyard, calling the stretch and the unity. One of the Syrians, Lucia Manso, said, "We lost our beginnings, but not each other. The most important things." Meanwhile, the Italian army remained the standby with more than 400 soldiers destroyed across the isolated to clear debris, reinforce river banks to deliver aid to remove vigilantes. The AU has also experienced its support. A team from the US Civil Protection Mechanism has been sent to coordinate with the Italian authority, increasing the livelihood of international funding to support long-term recovery. Scientists emphasize this is only a high bridge of may become normal. Southern Europe is especially by the Mediterranean basin is becoming increasingly vulnerable to extreme weather events and the climate change accelerators. As Sicily slowly begins to dry up, the real lesson of the storm is being recovered not only in losers but also in dialogue and the growing average in the Mediterranean Sea. One of the candle is calm sea as sunny skies is becoming of the epicenter of the climate disaster. Experts call this a turning point to the urge Southern European government is invest in the climate resilience. Coastal cities such as Palermo and Catania, densely populated, are reaching a culture heritage, particularly vulnerable to rising sea levels, increasing rainfall to heat waves. The Mediterranean Sea is warming 20% faster than the global average, said Dr. Elena Morandi, the climate researcher of University of Rome. This storm was not a fluke. This is part of the trend we are seeing more intense, more frequent, more destructive. International observers from UNESCO have experienced concerns about Sicily's historical monuments, many of which were flooded or damaged during this storm. The Baroque treacheries of Noto and ancient Greek ruins are still nude, and new parts of the parts surrounding Mount Etna were affected. Culture representative warned that the addition of psychological storm urged me to adapt to climate change were needed to prevent Sicily identified to tourist economy. This is a symbol act to unity in the consulate across the Sicily. Ron Bale solidarity as noon Tuesday, a moment of silence of victims is signs strange to serious. Sicily and no stranger to hardship. From the earthquake to volcanic eruption they have endured a lot, but this storm, many say, was different, not just a natural disaster but climate warning through the wind and the water. Italy is facing a major crisis after catastrophic floods swept through the parts of the country, with Sicily and Tuscany bearing the brunt of devastation. Torrential rain over the past week was causing rivers to overflow, triggering landslides, and left entire communities underwater. The flood, described as some of the worst in recent memory, have claimed lives, displaced thousands, and caused widespread damage to infrastructure and homes. In Sicily, the latest rainstorm had left widespread flooding across urban and rural areas alike. In the island capital Palermo, streets have turned into rivers, with the cars submerged and many residents forced to evacuate. Catania, another major city, has also been severely affected, with widespread damage reported in a historic center. The floods have overwhelmed the drainage system, leaving emergency services struggling to keep with the demand to rescue operations. Many people have been trapped in their homes, and helicopters have been destroyed to relieve residents from isolated areas. In Venice, a city all too familiar, and the high water level flood definitions were put on the test. The iconic most barriers designed to protect the crisis from the rising test where activities sheltered the Venice from significant damage. However, other areas of the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in the Veneto region saw extensive flooding with the residents forced to higher ground. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in several regions, mobilizing rescue workers to deploy to army to assist in evacuation force. Civil protection authorities have urged people to affected areas to remain cautious to offshore warning as more rain forecast in the coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited in the affected areas, expressing her solidarity with the victims and pledging government support to reconfuse force. This is national emergency, and we are working closely to local authority to ensure the safety for all residents, she said. Climate experts that such extreme weather events could become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, particularly vulnerable to affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, poor mountain infrastructure, and urban expansion into flood-prone areas has exacerbated the impact of recent storms. In dramatic turn of events, Sicily finds itself if those in unprecedented storm as nature unleashed any fury upon the picturesque Italian island. Where burst of the exclusive coverage and mythological spectacle deletion the impact of communities, infrastructure and the environment. As the storm approached Sicily, among the clouds gathering hilding the tempest to unparalleled proportions. Coastal area forced to onslaught the fierce winds and torrential rains leading the widespread flooding in challenging conditions to both residents to emergency service. Our on the ground reported paint a vivid picture to havoc wreaked by the storm. The city of Palermo was transformed into rivers and water levels served submerged cars and tested to silence the floodedness. The historic architecture with it stood at the test time to the faces of relentless onslaught of the wind of rain. Throughout the island communities are grappling with the power outage and the storm force caused significant damage to electrical infrastructure. Emergency shelters have been opened to provide refuge to those displaced by the storm. In the heart of the Mediterranean, the Italian island of Sicily has long been sensationally with a sun of the tempting coastline and seductive blend of the history and culture. However, this idyllic landscape is recently has been transformed into a dramatic scene of nature fury. A formidable storm marked by resounding rain and the fierce winds and lashed Sicily, and bearing the vulnerable of even the most picturesque of the region with the firms of weather. The storm onslaught was achieved with the meteorologists barely able to predict and intensify before the unleashed food and made the apron of fury. Winning our streets and town crisis across the Sicily were inundated, transformed urban center into unwelcoming, water-loaded mazes. The rain, increasing unforgiving, pointed the wind portrayal of the region undecided by the elements. In Palermo, the Sicilian capital, scenes in the chaos unfolded. As since streets and usually burst with the life and aroma of Sicily, crash while deserted save from a section of vehicles struggling against the rising water. The iconic Church Massimo, a testament of Sicily agriculture, dangerous stood with the silence within to unflooding calamity. Italy is grappling with a severe flooding after days of relentless rain, particularly affected with the northern regions of the country. Torrential downpour have caused rivers to swell, boost their banks and inundate towns and villages. This latest episode of flooding has left authorities struggling to cope with the growing crisis, with thousands of people evacuated from their homes. The region of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy and Veneto have been among the hardest hit. In Emilia-Romagna, widespread damage to infrastructure have been reported, with the roads submerged, bridges washed away and homes flooded. Several rivers, including the Po of the Angle, have reached critical levels, forcing emergency services to respond rapidly to prevent further damage. The situation has been compounded by landslides in hilly areas, blocked roads and isolated communities. In Venice, the city is too familiar to high water levels. Flood definitions were put the test. The iconic most barriers designed to protect the city with the rising tides were activated shelters to manage the Venice from the significant damage. However, other areas in the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in Veneto region saw extensive flooding, with the residents forced to fare the higher ground. Sicily, Italy's largest island, has been hit one of the strongest storms in recent times. One of the night of June 27, several weather warnings brought more than 180 mm of rainfall in just 20 hours, more than the region usually received in entire month. This was hit area where Palermo, Catania, Angindra and Messina were the hardest hit. Authorities confirmed that at least 3 people died as a result of the flooding electrocutions. Among the victims was a 45-year-old man from the town of Biancivaga, who was trapped in this car where sudden flooding inundated in low light unprecedented. In Palermo, emergency service responded more than 14 calls in one night. More than 120 homes were reportedly flooded in historic districts of Calza and Bellero. In the town of Aghern and Mount Etna, landslides to the evacuation more than 17 residents, while the rescue volunteers injured several persons. Power outage affected nearly 30,000 homes. An emergency company, Aeneas, sent dozens of repair crews on the island. Rain severe between Catania and Syracuse was suspended, and yet Falcon Belen Airport 15 flights were delayed or diverted due to heavy rain and a wind gust exceeded 19 km/h. Sicily Civil Protection Chief Fabio Crusoe warning that the increasingly unstable Mediterranean climate economy, warning from climatologists who said that the sea surface temperature, now about 27 Celsius, are contributed to the formation of more tropical cyclones now at the Mediterranean. Local media, including Roberto Lagola of Palermo and Etnico Tragico of Catania, have requested emergency funds of support from the national government. Cleanup efforts are ongoing, with more than 1,400 civil protection volunteers and firefighters involved in the cleanup debris and draining flooded areas. Environmental groups such as Ligibird and Colson Italy in the speed up infrastructure urged, especially in the southern cities prone on flooding. Experts from the University of the Palermo know that 16% of region drainage system and outdated or inundated from the today extreme weather conditions. As Italy begin in a powerful recovery, the message is clear. Climate disasters are no longer a distant possibility. They are not happening now with the devastating consequences. public transportation was severely disrupted, leaving passengers stranded. The coastal area faced a boost with a storm and strong wave crashing against the coastline, caused erosions to damage the sea definies. Emergency services are working around the clock to help those in need. The Italian Red Cross has mobilized teams to support the most affected areas, offering shelters and distributing basic necessities. Rescue operations are ongoing, with the reports of people trapped in the homes due to rising water. Helicopters have been deployed to evacuate those to imminent danger. The impact of the storm on agriculture is also a growing concern. Sicily knows the serious growth of vineyard forces potential devastation. Initial estimates suggest significant crops losers, with a could have the long-term economic impact of the region farming communities. Italian Prime Minister Conte has experienced solidarity with the affected residents, pledging government aid to resources to support recovery efforts. He praised the resilience of the Sicilian people and terrorist forced rescues. Meteorologists predict severe weather conditions will continue over the next 24 hours in vast residents to remain vigilant. As Sicily struggles with the aftermath and the disaster of focus to ensure the safety of the residents is beginning to arduous task to rebuilding. The full extent of the damage will become clear in the coming days, but for now Sicily is widespread the storm relentless onslaught.
Esta es la estación de la Garena.
Meanwhile, firefighters from all over Italy were sent to reinforce refuse force. Social media is flooded with the images in dramatic rescue operations. Children begin lifted from rooftops, elderly people begin to carry out throughout the waist-deep water, and pain being saved from the daunting. The hashtag Sicilia Scotta Aqua were become popular throughout the country. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed solidarity with the region, promising no community will be left without the help. We will rebuild our support every affected family. Experts warn that the Mediterranean region is becoming increasingly vulnerable to such storm. In the recent report by European Environmental Agency, Sicily was identified as a climate hotspot facing rising sea levels, heat waves, and now extreme rainfall. As the sky begins to clear, attention turned to recover. Damage assessment now ongoing to questions are being raised about the urban planning, drainage system, and early warning protocols. But for many Sicilians, healing will take no longer. As Giulia Romanga, whose home was destroyed, it said with the tears here years. We survived but now lost everything. Now we have started all over again. Coastal town in rural village in Sicily have experienced some of the worst damage. The agriculture sector, which is crucial in the island economy, have been hit hard, with the fields and cars destroyed in the rising waters. Landslides have cut off aces of several mountains regions, complicating rescue efforts. The situation remains fluid, with the emergency crew working around the clock to respond to new incident and didn't arise. Italy is grappling with a severe flooding after days of relentless rain, particularly affected with the northern region of the country. Torrential downpour have caused rivers to swell, burst their banks, and inundate towns and villages. The latest episode of flooding have left authorities struggling to cope with the growing crisis, with the thousands of people evacuated from their homes. The region of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy, and Veneto have been among the hardest hit. In Emilia-Romagna, widespread damage to infrastructure have been reported, with the roads submerged, bridges washed away, and homes flooded. Several rivers, including the Po and the Agrio, have reached critical levels, forcing emergency service to respond rapidly to prevent further damage. The situation have been compounded the landslides in hilly areas, blocked roads, and insulated communities. offering the lifeline in these terrifying times. Agriculture sector and the backbone of Sicily economy is not immune to the storm impact. Orange in the field and inundated, posing to threat to groups of livelihood. Farmers already facing challenges in recent years are now too late to continue with the aftermath of this natural disaster. As the storm intensifies, rescue operations are underway to ensure the safety of residents trapped in the rising water. Emergency service blocked by the local volunteers to navigate in treacherous conditions to reach those in need. Evacuations are being carried out systemically, proportions to most vulnerable members of the community. Italy's government, in collaboration with the regional authority, is mobilizing rescue to address the crisis. Prime Minister Matteo Renzi has declared a state of emergency in Sicily, unlocking additional funds to rescue and in recovery efforts. The Italian Red Cross and other humanitarian organizations are also coordinated relief operations to provide essential supplies and support to affected communities. While the storm continued to batter Sicily, the resilience and solidarity in the people shine through. Neighbors are leading to helping hand and communities are coming together to face and changing poison to natural disaster. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in the several regions, mobilized rescue workers and deployed it to army to assist the evacuation force. Civil protection authorities have urged people in the affected areas to remain cautious to need official warning to forecast in coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited in affected areas and presented their solidarity with the victims and pledged government support to reconstruction efforts. This is a national emergency and we are working closely with the local authorities to ensure the safety of all residents, she said. Climate experts warn that such extreme weather events become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, is particularly vulnerable in the affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, property, maintained infrastructure, and urban explosion into flood-prone areas in exact pattern the impact of the recent storms.